What's up, everyone? We're back. Welcome to Doctorly Unhinged.
I'm Dr. Maxfield.
And I'm Dr. Shaw. And today we have a ton of different topics that we want to hit. We're going to do a quick life update and a response to some of the comments from our last video, because we had a lot of engagement in our last video in the comment section, or our last podcast episode in the comment section. We're going to be talking about our product of the day, as usual, the 7 common skincare habits that could be damaging your child's skin. We're also going to be talking about this new trend of eating dirt. Is that good for your skin? Is it good for your microbiome? And then we're also going to be talking about silver and gray hair. This is a concern of mine. I want to address it. And we're also going to be talking about signs of bad Botox. And finally, whether or not travel could slow down the aging process. A theoretical study. Let's get into it.
All right, perfect. So, life update. I'll take it off because I've turned into a new person. For better or worse. I'm going to share some of these stories on my short form, but here are the list of skills I have acquired within the last week. 1, I can drive a skid steer. 2, I can drive an excavator. 3, I can now plumb. 4, I can now put on cabinets. And what is this life I am living? It is that of a small business owner. This is terrible. I never thought I'd be this person, but like everything that needs to be done, I'm doing. However, I mean, I'm looking at some bushes right now and I'm like, they've got to go. Let me get an excavator. So it's weird.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's amazing what you're able to accomplish when forced to do something, honestly. Yeah. It's incredible that when you start a business, you start any business, the founder of that business needs to really touch every aspect of the business in order for it to be successful and do the things that nobody else is going to do, or you're going to either have to find somebody to do it and you can hire them to do that, or you're going to have to do it yourself, right? Because it needs to get done and the buck stops with you, right? So I see you stepping up to the challenges. I love it. I would like to also get an update on Script from you, because the audience was asking in the comments on the last video. So I think the people want to hear an update.
Yep. So Script, I mean, we touched on it last week, and it's tough to say more at the moment, but believe it or not, like I said, we are, because of actually what was like an amazing response, we're just taking it to the next level on our end, just to make sure not only can the price be exceptional, but like everything is just like buttoned up top to bottom, like the highest quality in every step of what you're doing. So like, just like what I'm doing with the brick and mortar here, everything you touch, everything that you interact with, and everything that you don't even see is just getting just like a glow up in a sense, but more of a functional glow up to where it's just like the highest quality back end, front end shipping. Like we're just taking care of everything now. And then we're going to not fully launch, but we're going to just really move forward in a big way here when everything is exactly how we want it. But I mean, overall, it's done amazingly. Like the initial response to it, the growth of it, I couldn't be more thankful and happier. And now it's just making it and getting it to a place where we can really scale it and scale it perfectly.
Yeah, so that's the update. You know, the product is always going to be the same. It's always going to be the best tretinoin that you can get. It's just improving upon the platform and the customer experience. I think when you purchase anything online now, you know, this isn't 20 years ago, right? Where you deal with sort of a glitchy website or a bad user interface, or, you know, difficulty getting in contact with customer service, right? I think we're at the stage where every shopper wants a seamless customer experience. And that customer experience is part of the trust that's associated with the products that come from that shopping experience, right? So you need to get both of these perfect, especially when you're not just talking to your audience, your initial audience anymore. You know, luckily, we launched Script into an audience of people that already are familiar with us, and they trust Dr. Maxfield from all the content, right? So when you land on the website and you're like, oh, this isn't working perfectly, you're kind of okay with it to some extent. But, you know, as you scale it, you start to introduce it to new audiences that are going to expect the user interface to be better, right? And I think that means that you constantly have to improve. And same thing on Remedy. You know, we are constantly improving the user interface. We had all kinds of customer service issues when we first launched that we fixed day by day, brick by brick. And so I think it's part of the growing pains, and it's just something that's going to continuously get better based on your feedback. So if you have feedback on either Script or Remedy, feel free to leave it in the comments, because we are always willing to read and try to adjust to make these things better and better for you.
Yeah, no, that's exactly. It's dynamic. And I think that that's kind of going to be the longevity of both of those brands, Remedy and Script, is we will continually be improving always. Like we're always going to be pushing and cleaning and like just higher quality, better products. So I think that's actually a good thing, is that we're always going to be listening to the feedback, adjusting accordingly, and having like continual improvement.
Yep, definitely. And my life update is I am tired. I don't know why. I was like getting ready to shoot today and I just felt tired. And I was thinking, for 4 years, I feel like I've been in a sprint and it just hit me all at once, which usually happens. And then I sleep and then I feel better, but maybe I just need a nap or something. But we've been sprinting with content, sprinting with clinic, sprinting with now Remedy. And it's been a crazy wild ride. And sometimes I have back pain for no reason. But we are launching when this podcast episode launches, I think it will probably be launch day or the day before of our new product launch. This time I promise I will put a link in the description so that you can find it. We always do free shipping on launch days. So definitely check it out. This product, I think a lot of you are going to love. And feedback from the last episode in the comments, I had asked everybody what their thoughts of the term anti-aging is and whether they look at it as a negative term, because the industry, when I say the industry, I mean the skincare industry and the people who are skincare enthusiasts that talk a lot about skincare, they really demonize this word anti-aging. But it is the best descriptor for what products people are looking for. And that was the discussion we had on the previous episode. So just reading comments from people, it seems that everyone sort of agrees with this. So people are saying, one Cletus 206 said, I am a 45-year-old gay male and anti-aging is exactly what I'm looking for. I have enough of the background in education and skincare to know what products I need without marketing. However, if I did not have the knowledge, this anti-aging term would be the term I would be looking for. He goes into more detail. But 54-year-old woman, the term anti-aging doesn't really bother me personally. However, the word anti doesn't describe what most people are after. There's a negative connotation that someone is against or opposing aging. Why not say graceful aging, best aging, elegant aging, or refined aging? And, kind of over and over again, probably I would say about 90% of the comments were regarding this question I had. And overwhelmingly, people said the term anti-aging did not bother them. They felt it was a very good descriptor for what they were looking for in products and that they understood that aging is not a bad thing. It's just that when they're looking for a particular product to target, there's concerns that occur as they age. That is the type of term they are looking for. So it is interesting. I think the industry kind of has a long way to go to kind of define it, but you'll see how we define this term in our newest product launch and what we decided to call the product. And I'm curious to hear what the feedback is going to be for that. I'm going to give you a quote of the day because I can see it behind me in the background. So this is a plaque that Dr. Casal gave me when I graduated from residency. And it says, "We are afraid of losing what we have, whether it's our life or our possessions and property. But this fear evaporates when we understand that our life stories and the history of the world were written by the same hand." So this is our way of saying, take risks in life, take chances in life. Everything is already preordained. And so therefore, just go for it. The world, the universe, however you look at it, is already conspiring for your future. And so we shouldn't be afraid of these things. And I just saw it behind me, so it made me think of it. But it's from the book The Alchemist, which is one of my favorite books of all time.
Yeah, I've still not read that. I know you two have talked about that. I don't know why I haven't read it. That's top of my list now. I read every night now. So interestingly that you did that. Dr. Cassell also made this octopus behind me. And this is what he made before he started residency. He made me this. He used to make things with glass. He doesn't anymore. Life and time. My nurse, Amanda, shout out to her. She made me this. It's this is the thing. Like, we're so fortunate to have people in our lives that are just amazing. But Amanda made this. She's just making all these little things with some sort of machine. I don't know what it is, but it's like, maybe she's born with it. Maybe it's Botox, but it's super cute.
I love it. Okay. All right. So let's go into our product of the day.
So mine is actually the Vichy Vitamin C Serum. And here's why. So I've talked to you about this vitamin C serum before. I like it. It's just like a straightforward product, vitamin C. I think it's in the $40 price range, which is very reasonable for an L-ascorbic acid vitamin. Oh, whoa. Wait, no. Is that less? Is that little? It's not 40. It is 30. 25. Anyway, it's a very, very 35. Who knows? Depends where you buy it. But it's a very cost-effective vitamin C, especially for a well-made L-ascorbic. Now, when we talked about it previously, you and I behind the scenes, your knock was that denatured alcohol was high in the list, and that seemed unnecessary. There is no fragrance. They've removed the denatured alcohol just to also minimize irritancy. And just from the back end, I know they've improved the stabilization of the product even more, despite the alcohol being out. So overall, just like a nice little formula bump. So for someone looking for a relatively budget-friendly but quality vitamin C, this one got a glow up, and I think it's a good product. Actually, and completely unrelated, I just realized I posted a sponsored video for this on TikTok today, but that was actually completely unrelated. Sorry. When you actually watch this podcast, that'll be in the past, but I actually was impressed because that was very specific feedback that you and I had talked about with this one product, and they actually changed it. So I thought that was a good move on their part.
Yeah, they used to have these capsules, vials. I don't know if they still have them, but they were like in the glass ampules, and those were fragrance free. And then they had the bottle, the one that you're using now, that had fragrance in it. And what's interesting is Vichy and L'Oreal Paris and La Roche-Posay, all owned by the same company, but in a lot of their serums, they use a lot of alcohol, a lot of fragrances in them. And I think the products otherwise have such good, I mean, the L'Oreal Paris vitamin C with sal acid, right? I mean, again, that's a great product. They had to add fragrance into it. So I do think that if they just took away a few things, I'd be personally happier. I don't know that customers would be happier, but I would personally be happier. But I'm glad to hear the revamp, and I'll certainly try it. I'm still trying to find the right vitamin C for my skin.
It doesn't exist.
Right. Well, we'll see. I'm going to shout out for my product of the day. It's not a skincare product, but it's a body care line. And I just don't see it getting any love on the internet. So I figured I will give it some love. So this is Odell. Odell is something, I think it's at Target, but it's available in retail. It's available online. They have very large size. So this is 16 fluid ounces, $12, affordable body care. Going to last you a really long time. They even, I believe they also have shampoos. Yes. So I actually really, really like their shampoo. I'm trying to remember the ultra sensitive shampoo. They have an ultra sensitive shampoo that I love. And they also have a few body washes. Some are fragrance free. They have an ultra sensitive fragrance free body wash. They also have like a clarifying one that has more of like a mint tea tree for Dr. Maxfield, but they have a variety. So they pretty much have an offering that's wide enough for anybody to find this brand and like this brand. But I just love this brand to use in the shower. And they launched like a sugar scrub for the scalp and the body, and I actually like it a lot. The only downside of it is, like, I don't know if it's my particular product, the product in general, but like there's like part of the sugar like congealed at the bottom, and so it's not like evenly distributed throughout the scalp scrub. So on top it's kind of like more liquidy, and at the bottom it's like frozen sugar. But when you're able to like mix it up, it's actually a really nice experience. I'm like a huge fan of sugar scrubs. I think I've mentioned this before. Not for the face, but for the body and the scalp. I'm a huge fan of them. And I really, really like this product. So I really like this brand. It's affordable. They give you really large sizes, and it seems to work really, really well for me. So I think if anyone's looking for a new body care brand and you run by Odell while you're walking through the Target aisles, I think it's a really good option for you.
Nice. I'll check that out for sure.
All right, so let's get on to our first topic. So this is for the parents, also for the kids. These are the 7 common skincare habits that could be damaging your child's skin. Start it off, Dr. Maxfield.
Okay, so this list I actually found quite useful. The first one, though, first of 7, is using adult skincare products on your kid. Now, there are 2 sides to this, I think. I would say, in terms of branding, and then in terms of active ingredients. And it actually is going to require a little bit of investigation from the parent standpoint. And just very quickly, what I mean is that there are brands and products that are marketed for kids that could be good for adults. There are brands and products that are made for adults that would be good for kids. So it's not a hard and fast rule. But when it comes to active ingredients, in terms especially of like aging or harsh ingredients that serve a functional purpose, but really have no role in a kid's skincare, that's where I think the problem is. But again, it's not as simple as buying a kid's product is a good thing. Buying a grown-up's product is a bad thing when it comes to your children.
Okay. I agree with that. And then the next thing is sunscreen. So basically saying not wearing sunscreen is a mistake. You should be wearing sunscreen. What age do you think people need to start wearing sunscreen? Because I didn't wear sunscreen as a child. Obviously, I know better now. But what age would you start putting sunscreen on your child as a father?
I've done it since the kids were teeny tiny. And I would say it depends on your lifestyle, right? So if your kid is outside a lot because you're outside a lot, then I would say start extremely young. And if you're concerned at all about chemical filters, go with a non-nano zinc. That is at the moment one that is most people think is the safest, and whether that's true or not. But find a way to use sun protection. If you want to skip the sunscreen, use clothes. Like, that's another thing. So if you're worried at all about slathering anything on your child that has any ingredient name at all, which is a large portion of people, not to completely like belittle them, but a lot of people feel that way. And so then just put clothing on your child, protect their skin, because the DNA damage accumulates over the course of your life. And that sunburn you got when you were 5 years old actually can play a significant difference in how your skin develops skin cancers 50, 60 years down the road.
Yeah. I think when it comes to safety, I think this population is probably two populations which people are really honed in on this. And they don't want to do anything that they think is going to be at all risky, meaning that it doesn't have to be science-based. All they have to do is hear some fear-mongering around this population, and they will skirt away from it. And I think reasonably so, because you want this. So one time period is when someone is pregnant. They get very concerned about what they're putting in their body, what are they putting on their skin. They don't want to harm a developing baby, right? Second group is kids, right? Like with your kids, you want to make sure that you are doing the right things for them. You don't want them to be injured in any way, and you don't want them to be injured anyway at your fault, right? So I think people are very, very cautious during this period. I mean, even if you look at like the newborn market, right? I mean, everything from the fabrics that are in the clothing to the fabrics that are in the cribs, that are fabrics that are in the bassinets and the strollers, the safety of this car seats, like all of this stuff people are super hyper focused on it, and reasonably so, right? So safety is a big, big focus in both pregnancy and the newborn infant child period. So I think people reasonably want to make sure that what they're putting on their skin is safe and effective, but mostly safe. Even safe, I think safety is above effectiveness for this population. And so, I think if you're concerned about certain things that you've heard bad things about, then just try to put on the things that you feel comfortable with, knowing that the sun will damage the skin. Sun can cause issues later on. I do think reasonably so, being cautious about what you put on the skin at that age. And then just clothing protection always is going to be something that no one's ever going to have a complaint about. So just be cautious in the sun, regardless of the age, especially because the skin even isn't as resilient, but it will bounce back. But a lot of that DNA damage and the mutations that occur even as a baby can be carried forward for many years. So just be thoughtful of that. The next one they mentioned is overbathing. They said bathing kids too frequently or using hot water can strip their skin of the natural oils, leading to dryness. Use lukewarm baths and limit baths to a few times per week. So I think this is sort of an interesting comment, because in the eczema, and I could be wrong, so I'm going to have Dr. Maxfield, the father pro here, tell me more about this. But in my readings and in my discussions with my patients with kids, my patients who are kids, actually, especially with eczema, I often tell them to bathe daily. Is that recommendation not still consistent with those with eczema?
So, well, we've talked about this too, and there are two things I'm considering. One is the age of the child, because depending on the activity of your apocrine glands and even your sebaceous glands, those vary wildly with age. So your sebaceous glands are quite active when you're born, then they actually become more quiet until teenage years, then they become quite active again. Apocrine glands, very quiet early in life and then become active during your teenage years. And so I think my personal take actually is bathing less frequently, to probably some parents' surprise and relief is acceptable, because a lot of those glands aren't really active in those window years between like 3 and 13, 3 and 11. So you do have less natural grime that you have to wash away. And I'm still a fan of washing the hot spots where you just hit those areas of apical density, like the front, the booty, the armpits, like that sort of thing, to really just get those areas that are the most grimy and most bacterial laden. And then, I don't know, just get on with life in your normal day. So I probably am more of like an underbather relative to your general recommendation.
Okay. I think barring any issues, I think you're spot on. But specifically in those with eczema.
No, yeah. I'm definitely a less frequent person then.
Okay. So there's a study, atopic dermatitis and bathing, that said the conclusion was more frequent bathing, 1 to 2 times per day, improved symptoms meaningfully over 30% for about 40% more patients than less frequent bathing. So basically saying that more frequent bathing in atopic dermatitis, specifically those with eczema, babies with eczema, more frequent bathing, daily bathing, is associated with less eczema outbreaks than less bathing. So you would think that drying out the skin and bathing is a thing, and it is to some extent, especially if you're using harsh surfactant cleansers and you're also using really hot water. But as long as you're moisturizing afterwards, daily bathing is fine for kids, based on these studies. And the reason why most kids don't have eczema, and the reason why I highlight eczema is because this is the population with the most impaired skin barrier, right? So if it's safe for them, it could be safe for you. So I would say you can bathe less often, like Dr. Maxfield said, for sure. In most kids, this is going to work out fine. And bathing less often is completely fine. But don't feel bad if you bathe your kid daily, because even in the most vulnerable population with skin, it's still safe to bathe daily. So just keep that in mind, that, frequencies in this, even like we hear this in the adult population, how often should you be shampooing? And people say daily shampooing is a big taboo in the hair care community. But as a dermatologist, we always say, if you need to shampoo daily because you have dandruff or whatever reason, or you have oily hair, it's completely safe and okay to do that. So the frequency will be up to you, but bathing more frequently is not associated with worse eczema or dry skin.
Interesting. There's a lot of grace apparently with this one, because for you parents who are bathing your kids twice a day, especially who have multiple kids, kudos to you. That is exceptional. But for the majority of you, once a day, I think, is a win. Once every other day, I'd still say is acceptable. But definitely probably no wrong way to split this, honestly.
Right. The next one they mentioned is ignoring or avoiding moisturizers would be a mistake. They said that skipping moisturizers is a mistake. So what are your thoughts on that? Do you need to moisturize your baby? And if so, what would you do?
Again, I'd say let's start with the vulnerable population, atopic dermatitis and eczema. For there, I think it's a huge mistake. In my mind, and the way I characterize it to patients, is the moisturizing is the maintenance. Like, that's where the over-the-counter products shine. That's what's going to help prevent flares, and that's where you're going to just build a healthy foundation, so you don't have to reactively come behind it with some sort of topical anti-inflammatory like a steroid. Now, for the general population, the non-eczema population, I'd say it's still possible. Like, you can just watch your kid's skin. Some people have more oily skin, some kids have less oily skin, and so I'd say just reactively figure out, is this an important step for them? Because I am kind of in the camp that not everyone has to moisturize, to be honest, although it can be very effective for many people. But same rule for kids, like just pay attention to kids' skin. If it's dry, cracked, flaky, ashy, then they probably need a moisturizer.
Right. And be careful, of course, of what you're putting, right? You want to make sure that you're using the things that are, derm approved, fragrance free, all that. I mean, this goes in also to diaper rash creams and all of that, right? You want to look, this is where you really do want to be an ingredient reader, and you're thinking, well, my child didn't go through this as a kid, so why should my kid have to do that? I will say, though, that when it comes to allergy specifically, it is a function of sensitization, and sensitization occurs through time, meaning that the more you expose your kid to a potential allergen, the more likely they are to develop that potential allergen. And then there's like the reverse of like, if you don't get any exposure to peanuts as a certain age, like, will you then develop like anaphylaxis to peanuts? This is different than atopic dermatitis. This is the type of allergy that occurs with like peanut allergy is very different than the type of allergy that occurs with skincare allergies. And when it comes to skincare allergies, specifically, if you're exposed to them more, they don't get better, they get worse. So, keep that in mind when you're talking about skincare allergies, that if you're exposing your kid to more and more stuff at a younger age, they're more likely to develop allergies to things that are highly allergenic or highly sensitizing. So this is really where you want to look for products that are really geared towards sensitive skin, fragrance-free, derm tested, hypoallergenic, if those words really even mean anything. Ultimately, look for those recommendations where you're being thoughtful about what types of things you're putting on the skin. Next up would be not addressing skin issues promptly. I agree with this. I think with any skin issue, you want to have it looked at. If you have eczema, you want to be thoughtful about treating it. And then finally, using over-the-counter creams without consulting with an expert. I think that, most people don't have access to an expert a lot of times. So there's a lot of self-education that needs to occur throughout the world on what to put on the skin. But when using over-the-counter creams and lotions, especially when you're using things like topical cortisone cream, I think that's a mistake that, adults can be making, is that their kid has an itchy rash or they have a bug bite or something. And, the standard treatment for this would be to use like cortisone 10 on it. But cortisone in general will thin the skin out and cause all kinds of issues, and oftentimes won't make things better. So yeah, if you're going to be using something like a topical cortisone cream, that's when you definitely want to consult a doctor. But if you're using any other type of cream that's available over the counter, that's not a prescription or doesn't have over the counter actives in it, then probably okay, as long as you do your research to make sure what you're putting on there is safe.
Yeah, I'm trying to come up with like a practical rule, because like Dr. Shah said, there's no one has access to an expert every time you're going to buy an over-the-counter product or a cream. So like I would say give it a week, give it 2 weeks at most. And if what you're using is not helping and it's making it worse, or it's just getting worse, then that's probably their time to go see a professional, because, it's life. You're not going to be able to get in right away, even if you try. So you have a little window, have a little grace, but there's a lot of homework that goes into being a parent that you can try to do on your own too.
Right. And in your pediatrician, right, you don't need to go see a dermatologist right away, to be clear, because your pediatrician, the common skin concerns that occur in kids, your pediatrician can solve 99% of those things, right? So first, to go see your pediatrician, they probably have a quick solve for you. Can tell you how to safely use things. Never use steroids for longer than 2 weeks. In an adult and a kid, I would say be cautious for any longer than a week in a row without talking to a doctor, and then just talk to your pediatrician first. And if they can't solve it, then they'll send you to your dermatologist. So no reason to jump the gun right away. So let's move on to the next quick trend. I just want to mention it because it showed up on my feed. Bizarre beauty trend of eating dirt for glowing skin has taken over social media. And the whole reasoning behind this, and they even reference a study on this, believe it or not, and they're talking about how like dirt, like the average soil that you find in your yard, has more diversity of microbiome than your gut does and your skin does, and therefore if you ingest dirt, it will increase your biodiversity, and therefore your gut health will be better, and therefore your skin health will be better. And to that I say no. Please do not eat dirt. I cannot see any reason why we should be eating dirt. I understand like the logic behind why microbiome diversity is important. And I just think there are much safer ways to do it. And I'm hoping for some probiotic, prebiotic brands to launch that have meaningful data behind them. But dirt eating is not the next trend.
No, I'm a big proponent, and the studies definitely back this up. The more you are outside and active, even as a mom, like you're less likely to have allergens in probably your children. And I think that holds true. Like the more we expose ourselves too early, the less likely you are to develop allergies to things in the future. Now, specifically though, towards the microbiome and then getting that diversity from consuming dirt, I think that is not the solution. I think it's a lot less logical. There's also, anytime I think of dirt, like I think of a lot of those hookworms and stuff. And I know there's not many of those in America, but there's a lot of larvae in that dirt that you may not be thinking about. There are other organisms there other than like good diverse microbacteria that you just consumed, and they may be living in you. Like amoebiasis, there's definitely a ton of that hanging around. I actually just went swimming in the creek. I could have it right now. I'll let you know in a week if I have some problems. But like, there's a lot more in the environment that you would consume.
Right. And you're going to eat some dirt in your lifetime. Okay. Inadvertently, right? Whether it's because you touched the dirt and then you put your hands in your mouth, whether someone who cooks you food touched the dirt, and then so you're getting this like microbiome diversity just through the environment that you're in, that you don't have to go grab a chunk of dirt and eat it in order to get the benefits from that. And then, a lot of these probiotics, they isolate, the good gut bacteria, and try to give it back to you. And that's certainly not a perfect science, because do you really want, 10 billion units of one type of lactobacillus? Probably not, but I do think that the science is heading in a direction where we'll have good answers for a gut microbiome that are better than eating dirt. So yeah, let's move away from that trend. And I want to talk about this briefly, because I alluded to this at some point, and I said I was going to do a longer video on it, and we haven't done it. So I'm going to touch on it now, just in case we forget to do the full video on it. But this is the launch of a new brand. This is coming out of Glossy, and I was interested in it because it's an issue of mine. But it's title of the article is, "With the launch of Silverist, gray hair enters the beauty conversation." And this is a conversation of a new brand called Silverist, launched by former beauty executive Evelyn Wang. And it's really targeted towards gray hair. And it's basically saying, hey, gray hair is different than other types of hair in quality, which I actually believe to be true. It needs certain care that other type of hair doesn't need. Fair. And then it also is meant to restore some of the color with each wash. So every time you wash the hair, it has some pigments in it that are meant to restore some of the color. Okay. The reason why this is relevant to me is because I started going gray pretty young. I probably got my first gray hair when I was like 24-ish. And it's only gotten worse. And now, in fact, I don't know, worse or better, however you want to frame it. I get a lot of white hairs on the side of my head. My hair is super short right now, so you can't see it as much, but Dr. Maxfield can definitely attest to this. And then I'm also getting this like silver streak that's developing here. And I actually don't mind my gray hair much, but what I will say is that I have dyed my hair in the past. I am very, 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 very allergic to hair dye. Okay. And it's only gotten worse with time, which is why I was saying earlier that skin allergies get worse with time. They don't get better. And so, I was exposed to hair dye at some point. I used to get my hair like blonde highlights. And then later on in life, my barber was like, oh, you have whites here and I can make your fade better. And so I'm going to dye your hair. And my entire scalp lit up. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm allergic to hair dye. Tried it again. I had a bad allergic reaction, worse than the first time. So I basically had to come to the conclusion that I can no longer use hair dye. Now, that's the specific allergen in hair dye that causes allergy is something called PPD, phenylparadiamine. It's a very common allergen. And so my assumption is in all the products that I looked at that I had an allergy to had PPD in them. So I started to look for products that were PPD free. And I found a product that said PPD free. And I used it. And again, worse allergic reaction than before, no PPD in it. So I said, whoa, what's going on here? And this product has something called TDS, which is like toluene something, something, something. TDS is the thing. I'll tell you exactly because you need to look for it. TDS, toluene. Okay, so there's paraphenyldiamine. That's the most common allergen. And then the other one is called TDS, toluene 2,5-diamine sulfate. Okay. It's an oxidant used in permanent and demi-permanent hair dyes and tints. Okay. The thing with this is the product says PPD free. Why would anyone want to avoid PPD? There's only one reason to avoid PPD. It's not like parabens, right? Where people are like, oh, theoretically, PPD is only avoided for one reason and one reason only, because people have allergies to it. There is no other reason to avoid PPD. So they write PPD free on it. And they put this other ingredient in the product called TDS, toluene 2,5-diamine sulfate. There is a more than 50% cross reactivity between these two molecules, meaning that like everybody, like more than 50% of people that are allergic to PPD are also allergic to TDS. So if you're going to put PPD free on your product, and the only reason people are avoiding PPD is because they have allergies, why would you put a molecule that people are also allergic to in that product, right? To me, I feel like this is the most dangerous form of advertising. I was very sad about it because it mainly affected me. And I had a really bad allergic reaction to this. And then I have to use steroids for a long period of time. And I'm itchy all the time. And my hair falls out. So anyway, I'm basically allergic to every hair dye. And so this product is exciting to me. And this range of products is exciting to me. And from what I can tell from the ingredient list so far is there's no TDS or PPD, at least in the shampoo that I've looked at. So I'm going to buy this and I will let you know how it goes. But if anyone else has any other recommendations for gray hairs, let me know. I am open to these recommendations. But as of now, I am allergic to both PPD and TDS. Fact.
Nice. Yeah, I've been haunting the ingredient list while you were talking, trying to find. I mean, this is the one, right? Silverist in the silver.
Yeah.
Bottles.
That's the
yeah,
one.
So,
yeah.
I mean, it is like all shampoos. There are other allergens in here, other problematic ingredients that dermatologists might pick out. So, I mean, it is what it is. That's like the world of shampoo and hair care. I just don't know why. It's like, can't get away from it. But I also like it. For those of you who haven't seen Dr. Shaw closely, like whatever he says is absolute bullcrap because if you just look at Doctor Strange's hair, just Google Doctor Strange hair for all of those of you listening. And this is exactly what Dr. Shaw's hair looks like. It is absolute crap. It is the coolest looking gray hair pattern. Like if anyone could choose how to go gray, like this is the way. And I'm very jealous. I'm not going gray too much yet, but like seriously, I thought I wouldn't, if he told me he dyed his hair gray on the side so it would look like this, I'd 100% believe it. It looks too
this is the
liver.
worst pattern. Have you ever seen, you're right. So it's Doctor Strange, exactly like
Even
Doctor
the
Strange.
streak.
But did you ever see The Sopranos? And the Pauly guy, he also had hair like this.
No, I didn't. Yeah, but you wear, yeah, but you, no, he's missing the front half. No, you wear it more like Doctor Strange. You've got a Doctor Strange, not Polly, gray going on.
Well, I don't know. I don't love it. But I mean, I would love it. I would like it better if it was just even throughout. I don't like the distribution currently, but it's fine. It's fine. But this is my story about allergy, and I care a lot about it. So let's move on to the. But I appreciate the compliment. This article is coming out of New Beauty, and it says forehead Botox gone wrong. Here are the signs of bad injections and how to avoid them. This article is coming from Liz Ritter. She's great. Now, I want you to give us your update because if anyone who's listened to the last episode, we made a joke about Dr. Maxfield injecting Daxxify in one side of the face and then Botox in the other side of the face, and he decided to do it anyway.
Yeah, the fool did it.
So tell us what you did and what you anticipate is going to happen next, and just your initial week experience with this because you actually did it.
So the Chase, the PA here, he good guy and great provider. He did half of my face. So this face is Daxxify and this face is Botox, equal unit conversions. Now, the reason this is very germane to this article, and the reason I wanted to make sure we talked about this article, is because this talks about all the adverse events of Botox. And number 6, there's something different about your brows. You don't look natural, or there's asymmetry. A lot of these things. I know for a fact my right eyebrow is stronger than my left because I do the rock thing every day. I probably do it 1,000 times. And so every time I've gotten a neuromodulator, my right side lags behind my left. So I always have like a droopy face for a week. And so Daxxify is supposed to kick on faster and last longer, which is actually a pretty good bargain. To be honest, we'll talk maybe more about this, but Daxxify is pretty good for your bang for your buck. But I thought I was going to put Daxxify to the test by putting that on this side of my face, the stronger eyebrow, and the left side of my face was going to be Botox. And despite what the studies would suggest the Botox kicked in first, day after, in fact. And so I've been taking daily photos. Eventually, I'll launch like the intro on short form, just showing the results. But the Botox kicked in first on the weaker side of my face, what I know to be the weaker side of my face. The Daxify kicked in about 3 days total, which is on par with their studies. And now I still have more movement on the right side, Daxify side. And I'm, 4 days in now?
And
maybe
you use
5.
like a equivalent unit tree, presumably.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So Daxify still lagging to Botox in this race. And I got to actually get pictures today before I forget for day, whatever it is, 4 or 5.
Okay. This is good. I like it. Also, I've always felt that Botox kicks in faster than the studies suggest.
I did too. Same.
I've always felt that way. Like within 2 days, within 24 hours, I feel like Botox starts working. And they say 2 weeks, but I really think I'm maxed out at about a week.
Same.
I think they undersell the speed at which it works.
Yep, I do too.
Okay, so I'm super curious about how this is going to play out for you, good or bad, and I'm more curious about if Daxify truly lasts longer than Botox.
Right, and
so that's going to be the $1 million question. So we're going to continue to follow this story with Dr. Maxfield and see what happens next. So this is the signs that you've gotten bad injections of Botox. So first sign they said is you didn't get the real deal. So we've talked about this before due to contamination around different types of Botox, and there's certainly fake Botox out there. How do you control for this as a consumer? Go to a reputable doctor you trust. Just being able to trust them on everything from making sure that they bought authentic product all the way to their injection technique. That is going to solve all your issues if you find a good doctor that you trust. Now, when going into a place where you don't know the area well, you don't know the provider well, you can ask for the box, you can ask for the lot number, you can make sure that they're purchasing it directly through an authorized retailer, aka directly from the company, like directly from Allergan, directly from Galderma. That's where the supply chain gets tainted, is when people are buying it from third-party websites. You want to be buying it directly from the manufacturers. You want to make sure what lot number you're getting. Do I think that's overkill for most people? Probably yes. But if you're going to a med spa or somewhere you don't recognize, or you're going to a new provider that you don't have that trust relationship with, you have to protect yourself over all else. So ask the questions that are going to make you feel comfortable. There's not much you can do in this regard other than to ask for the lot numbers and ask whether or not they're purchasing it directly from the manufacturer.
Yeah, and I think it's as far as you can go. I've seen a lot more videos on TikTok lately, like just emphasizing this point, like ask to see the product before they inject. To be honest, from a doctor standpoint, like I put in 20 years of work. Like, I'm not gonna sell you fake Botox to make like a little bit more on top with my medical license at risk. And I think most doctors, especially because of the investment up front, are that way. But like Dr. Shaw said,
doctors are greedy. Really though, like some
you might be
doctors
right. Actually,
are greedy. Like I would say you're right. Like 99% of the time, like especially the more training you have, the more protective you are going to be of that training and try to do the right thing. But I don't know. I think I wouldn't be offended if you asked me to look at the lot number. Honestly, I would probably be glad to some extent, because there would be another check even on my team. Because a lot of times I'm not drawing up the Botox, right? Like I'm like, hey, I need 40 units of Botox. My team goes and draws it up, right? So if in the room you're like, hey, can I see the lot number? I'm like, oop, good. You know what I mean? Like double check. We got to triple check now on this. Like they looked at it, I looked at it, and then you looked at it. You know what I mean? So I feel good about that. We only order directly from the manufacturer, but my point is, I wouldn't be offended, and I think any doctor or provider who would be offended, I think that, that's probably not a good sign. The next is you went for too good of a deal. We're going to have to fly through these kind of quickly here, so I'm going to speed up through this. You went for too good of a deal. I agree with this to some extent. I think when you're price shopping on cosmetic procedures, you can get yourself in trouble. Now, I do think that a lot of these procedures are quite expensive. So, you do want to make sure that your money is going farther. But you when you're price shopping for cosmetic procedures, you can get yourself in some trouble.
Yeah, I agree. Cosmetic procedures are not where you want to spare a buck. Like you don't want to be on the outliers probably on either end. If it's an arm and a leg twice as much as anywhere else, probably not worth it. If it's half price, not worth it. Like just trust me, you want to be somewhere in this one standard deviation of the norm.
Absolutely. Yeah. There are definitely places who are going to charge you the same and outcome will be the same, where they're just more of a premium practice, or, they have better branding, right? So they're going to charge you an extra 25%. But there's variation there, but you don't want to be like, hey, suddenly your Botox is like $6 a unit. It's like, wait a minute. That's not right. That's
Yeah.
cost, so it's not something that's not math in here. There are reasons why someone would sell you Botox at cost, and from a business perspective, it could bring you in as a client for other things. But
Right,
most of the time, just be careful when it comes to price shopping. The next is your injector went with a template for injection. So basically, like, kind of exactly injecting the same points they would inject on everybody. And I kind of agree with this. I think it's difficult for a patient to know when someone is doing this, but I do think in order to get the right injections and the right outcome, each patient should be evaluated on a patient by patient basis, meaning that if I look at Dr. Maxfield and his left brow is lower than his right brow, and it's stronger on the right than it is on the left, like, I should recognize that as a provider, and I should inject more on the side where he has more movement. And, so you have to, it really is on a case by case basis, how you're injecting, how you're evaluating. And so when you're walking in, they should be evaluating you, right? Like, hey, lift your eyebrows, frown. Have you had bad experiences in the past? Do you have any, like, they're asking you the right questions. If they just go in and inject without asking you to do anything, 9 out of 10 times they'll probably turn out fine. But you do want a more bespoke approach when it comes to injections.
Yeah. No, I'm actually, I kind of agree with this one a little bit more. I think it should be personalized rather than template, but you have to know the rules to break them. So you start with the template and go on from there.
Yeah. And then next is your injector didn't take you into account. This is the same sort of thing that, each person is individualized. Each person's muscle distributions are different. Each person needs more in different areas. So you definitely want to have a more bespoke approach. Next is you don't look natural while resting or moving. Yes, that's true. And I would say that doesn't mean that you got like bad Botox or your injector doesn't know anything. It could be the first time you got injected by that person, or it could be your first time getting it done and you peak in a certain area just because, we start to recognize, hey, this person, has very strong, muscles in the Spock. So now I know that I need to go a little bit lower. I need to put a little bit more lower. That's something that, can happen. I always think less is more, especially when it's the first time you're getting injected or it's the first time I'm having a patient. I'd rather you have more movement than less. And then, because I can always reverse, I can always add more, but it's difficult for me to take away. So there can always be side effects where you're got injected too much or too little. That doesn't mean you were injected poorly. It just means that, maybe your anatomy wasn't, what they expected it to be. And then that can easily be fixed. But if that happens over and over again, that's probably a bad sign. But if happens once, while you're with a certain provider, I wouldn't completely write it off.
Yeah, I think consistency with your injector is actually really important because, like I said, my right eyebrow is stronger than my left. I always am asymmetric during the first week. And so these are the kind of things you learn about yourself, especially if it's your first time getting injected. You have to learn that at some point, and the person injecting you has to learn that too about you. So I think after your first one and then the second one, it should be smooth sailing. You just come in, they know exactly your face, your skin, how much you need, and it should be easy as can be and consistent as can be, even just 2 times in. So a little bit of flexibility as you learn your face, they learn your face, but then it's easy.
Next is there's something different about your brows. I think, again, this kind of goes into the same thing where when you're injecting the upper forehead or even around the eyes, it's going to affect the position of your eyebrows. And the intention is to be very thoughtful about each person's face and where you inject. If you want what we refer to as a more masculine appearance, your eyebrows tend to sit lower on the face. Where a more feminine appearance, the eyebrows tend to sit a little bit higher above the brow ridge. And so when you inject somebody too heavy on the upper face and their eyebrow comes down more and it sits lower on the brow ridge, it can sort of masculinize the face. So So your brow position is very, very important to the appearance of your face. It can either feminize you, it can masculinize you, and you can decide whether or not which appearance you like as an individual, right? But as an injector, you should be thoughtful about what outcome you're looking for and what outcome your patient is looking for. And so eyebrow position is one of the most critical things when someone looks at your face. It can send certain signals to other people. So ultimately, brow position is super important. Again, hard to control for the first time you're injecting somebody. You try to like take the law of averages of what you've done in the past, and the individual that you're looking at and try to get it right. But every now and then people will come in and say, hey, my eyebrows felt a little heavy last time. And I'm like, okay, that means I'm going to do less, or I'm going to inject higher. So that's why, like Dr. Maxfield said, sticking with a certain provider over an extended period of time, they're just going to get better and better. It's similar to like when you get your hair cut. A lot of times you stick with the same barber or hairdresser, your haircut gets better and better and more like you each time you go in because, hey, you went too high, you went too low, you went too short. I want more layers. I want more texture, et cetera, et cetera. Gets better and better every time you see somebody, usually. Usually.
Yeah, it should.
Is
that the list?
Nope, there's still more. So the next up is all of a sudden you have a mouth issue. Agree. Similar to the eyebrows issue. If you inject the mouth wrong, you can have issues sucking on a straw. You can have issues holding water in your mouth. So if someone's doing like a lip flip, or they're injecting around the mouth, you can certainly have issues with your mouth movement. You can also inject the cheeks or the masseter or the around the eyes and even have issues with your smile. So definitely same thing. Unintentional injection or too low, too high, or too certain areas can definitely affect your smile. Next is you're having an adverse reaction. Yes. So that's something that is completely out of control of the injector's hands. Is if you have an allergic reaction, that's something that is very difficult to control for. You could be allergic to Botox. That could happen. Sign 9 is you're not seeing a difference. That may not be an issue with the actual Botox itself. It could be that you're actually immune to Botox, meaning that your antibodies don't allow you to respond to it. So some people truly are immune to Botox, like they will not work on them. The other thing is if the provider injects the wrong location, they're not actually injecting in the muscle, then it's not going to work very well. So it could be the provider's fault. It also could be your body basically not accepting Botox.
Yep. I'm just keep going because it's a long list. But next one, you actually have new lines forming. So this is something, again, you just won't know until you do it. Like right now, you'll see this a lot on guys. Like if you watch news anchors, they'll have this is how you know they've had it. They have prominent lines right above their eyebrows because if you inject too low, you'll drop a heavy brow. So this is like the telltale sign that's smooth up here, down here, or conversely, you can have compensatory wrinkling above the frontalis muscle. And again, it's just personalizing it. Like, oh, all right, your other muscles compensated after that. So let's do it again. Let's do a little touch up in a week or two, 2 weeks usually. And then you just learn your face as you go on and you move on.
Yeah. So 100% getting new lines forming can certainly happen. And that's just your face kind of changing as a result to like the new thing that just occurred to it. And again, like you might have a friend that says, hey, my Botox lasted 3 months, mine lasted 4 months, yours lasted 2 months. Like, is it because, your individual body is going to respond so different to injections than anybody else's. So it's really hard to compare like one person to the next. I know some people whose Botox will last them 5 months. And I know some people whose Botox will last them only 2 months or a month. And then, it's not because it's diluted too much. It's not because they didn't inject properly. It's just because your body responds very differently. Now we say the average is 3 months, but there is a lot of variation from person to person there. Sign 11 is you got too much. Yep. If you get too much, you can look frozen. Some people want to look frozen. Some people don't want to look frozen. That's a discussion that I always have with my patients. Actually, I ask them, do you want to look frozen or do you want to have more movement? And then we kind of have a discussion around that. Next is you see wrinkles just above your eyebrows. Dr. Maxwell was just talking about that. You can get compensatory lifting of your eyebrows as a result of you being frozen above that. And that's something that your body will learn with time. And we can always inject a little bit lower and see how much we can get away with. We can also inject less a little bit lower just to see what we can get away with. And again, if you see upper forehead wrinkles. So this kind of covers everything to look for with bad injections. And I want to go to this last article. I just want to touch on it briefly because I know we're running a little long here. But this popped up on my feed and it was covered in Forbes in the Wall Street Journal. And it basically says, travel may slow down aging. according to a new study. And if you really look at the study, it's not really a study. It was published in it was published in something called the Journal of Travel Research. And it's more of like a theoretical approach to like how different, like it's more of like just a discussion on how, travel influences human health and what certain things like when you travel could be good for your overall health. And it's the article is called "The Principle of Entropy Increase: A Novel View of How Tourism Influences Human Health." And they basically summarize this and they say, oh, well, a new study shows that if you travel, it can slow down aging. And I think that there's probably some truth in this. There's probably some not truth in this. I think if you travel for work, you're probably going to die sooner. The reason why I say this is I travel a lot for work, and there's nothing more stressful than traveling for work and being in cities for very short periods of time, not enjoying those cities and flipping your schedule constantly when you're, in London on a, 6-hour time difference. And then you have to wake up the next day in New York on a 6-hour time difference. Like, it is not good for your health to do that. So traveling for work and traveling frequently, I think probably terrible for your health. I think traveling for leisure and vacation, probably great for your health because it's probably going to reduce stress. Also, if you have the means to travel for vacation, you probably have access to healthier lifestyle, which is probably a confounding variable to some extent, right? If you have the means, like the financial resources to travel, you're probably going to have less financial stresses. You also are probably going to live a healthier lifestyle because you're going to have access to better food. You're going to have access to more help, all this kind of stuff. So I think that travel probably does help if you're traveling for leisure, but I would argue traveling for work has been one of the hardest things on my body out of anything I've done.
Yeah, I totally agree. I actually didn't know what your take was going to be but I should have known. I agree more. I call BS on the premise. I call BS on the result. Traveling definitely ages you. If you're like the intent behind it is to relax, well, then it's the relaxing once you got there that actually helped you. It wasn't the trip itself. So I disagree. You can't prove me wrong. Not yet, at least.
Yeah. And it depends on what you do when you travel. And they kind of touch on it in the article a little bit that if you travel and like you're going to like the national parks and you're hiking and you're doing a lot of walking when you're traveling, like probably is good for you. If you're traveling and doing all inclusive where you're going to drink a bunch of alcohol, probably not great for you. If you're doing all inclusive where you're not going to drink and you're just relaxing, probably good for you. So I think how you vacation, where you vacation, why you're traveling, that's all going to play a role. So that's why articles like headlines like this always drive me nuts because like the conclusion is like travel is better for your health and longevity when there's so much nuance that would go into that. And also like what exposures do you have when you're like, I mean, some of the times I've been the most sick in my life is during travel, right? Where I get food poisoning and I'm used to the water, So like all those things can't be good for you, especially as you get older. So, the headlines, I don't know. I love travel. I travel quite a bit, but traveling for work really is a drain on your system. And so I think take this with a little bit of nuance.
Yeah. Well, that was it. We covered a lot today, as they say, and that's our whole list. So we will see you next time. We're going to keep the same day. So appreciate y'all for being on this journey with us. Really enjoy having you. And thank you so much for the feedback on the last video, the comments. Definitely appreciate your input on the bigger topics. And it does make a difference. Like Dr. Shah is going to name his product differently based off of things. So like it's actually pretty impactful. So we appreciate your feedback and we'll see you next time.
Not only do I read your comments and Dr. Maxfield reads your comments, but my whole team at Remedy, which is like 12 people now, we all read your comments and they screenshot them and they're like, hey, this person's comment and feedback was so helpful. So it really is helpful. In fact, even with Script, I know the Script team also reads a lot of the comments and feedback. So it is, it really is so critical hearing from you. I know a lot of people think, hey, is this comment, does anyone see this? And and I used to think that too, right? As somebody who leaves comments on videos myself, am I just like filling a void? But for us, it's super meaningful, especially when it's feedback about Script or Remedy. Like we really, really take these things home and we really try to improve upon them. So your interactions with us are not in a vacuum. We really, really hear you and are trying to do better and better for you. So thank you for everything you do for all of us. if our new remedy is out, definitely check it out in the link below. We're super excited about it. And we're going to improve upon the script every week.
Yeah. Thank y'all. We will talk to you next time.
See you next time.